Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Jeff Steck from Tylerica Marketing Systems in Austin, Texas. And joining me today on the podcast are Ian Cantle from Outsource Marketing in Toronto, Canada, Paul Barthel from Changescape Web in St. Charles, Missouri, and Ken Tucker also from Changescape Web. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
So today's topic
Howdy.
is social media for businesses, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Gotta love a good Clint Eastwood movie line, right? Today's format will be a roundtable with one of the hosts taking the lead for a question and the rest of us chiming in as we see fit. So try and keep it down to a dull roar, guys. So
right.
Ken, let's start with you. Many business owners may be skeptical about using social media in their businesses for whatever reason. What do you tell them if you're making the case for using social media in their business?
Okay, so we talk a lot about omni-channel marketing in this podcast, and social media is certainly critical to that. And before I get started, really talking about, why businesses should be using social media, I want to point out that, some businesses are going to get a lot more traction out of social media than others. And when we talk about social media, I mean, we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, platforms like that typically that are going to work for most businesses. Lifestyle businesses are going to perform the best on Facebook and Instagram typically. So if you're a restaurant or a boutique or a salon, anything related to personal fitness or wellness, those businesses typically are going to get a lot more interaction and engagement. And also, if you're the type of business that has a lot more frequent customer interactions, whether they come to your store or buy online, you're typically going to get a better performance from social media. So what does that mean for brick and mortar businesses are great, right? Potentially. For service area businesses, it can be a big difference there. But social media still is a really important ingredient into the mix of the overall omni-channel strategy. It increases your visibility. If you have to work at this, but the challenge is, for most businesses, they don't know what to post. And you really have to think about this. I always talk about social media as being packaged, at three different layers. Layer one is just that basic blocking and tackling level. You've got to post twice a day, or you're not going to have visibility on your platforms that are important to you. It's just the reality. The algorithms of the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, they want to see that you're posting quality content on a regular basis. So that basic blocking and tackling level is important if you're going to use social media as a core part of your strategy. It helps to reinforce your brand. Level two is really where you have the opportunity to take that next level. And that is, brand building and customer engagement. When you post behind the scenes images, videos, stories about the business or about the founders or the causes or the communities that you work with and support, people love that. And that's usually something that's best done by the business from people within the business, or at least feeding that to their social media marketing company so that they can package that and use that and produce the final social media posts that are there. When you get to that second level where you're talking about the business, the behind the scenes, the key employees, all of those things, you're all actually able to start to get to differentiation. We believe it's really important to post, if you're going to be working on an SEO strategy, you should be posting links back to those blog posts in a 12-month schedule to keep driving traffic back to that blog post over the period of a year. So that's really important. That actually increases the visibility and it helps with some SEO because it's sending social signals that, there's content that people are finding on these social platforms and sending traffic to your website. So that can be a really big deal. Obviously, it's going to give you a lot better insight into what people find interesting, and so looking at the data and the analytics behind what posts get the most likes or engagement or shares or followers, all very, very important. The other thing is, a lot of people think you need to build these big, massive numbers on your social media platforms. While there's some vanity truth to that, it makes you feel good. The reality is you really want to keep and build your followers to the people who are most actively excited about your business. The reality is, if you post video, you're likely to have that seen by maybe 12 to 16% of people who like and follow your page or your profile. With images, it's slightly less. With just pure text, it's slightly less. And then if you link out to content on another website that's not on that social media platform, then that can drop. Now, those are from Facebook, but I suspect that they're still fairly valid even for a platform like LinkedIn. But if you're going to do LinkedIn and you're writing blog posts, LinkedIn has a feature where you can actually post articles, and a lot of people don't take advantage of that. And there's no duplicate content penalties or anything like that. I think it's a good practice to take that blog post and post it as an article on LinkedIn if LinkedIn is the right social media platform for your business. If you're truly B2B, then LinkedIn merits a lot of consideration, business to business. If you're business to consumer, then I think you're looking more at Facebook, Instagram, possibly X, depending on the nature of your business. The other thing is, when you do build a following, or you build up your followers, you can actually use advertising on that platform to advertise only to those people who are your followers. They're the ones who are going to be your champions, your advocates. They're more likely to share. They're more likely to take advantage of an offer or a promotion or a new product launch that maybe you're doing. And so getting that out to them, in a targeted advertising way, it's going to reduce your advertising budget because you're not trying to reach a gazillion people. You're really trying to reach a targeted set of people that are already actively invested in your business. And so that can be a great strategy. Looking at seeing what your competitors are doing, inevitably you go to a conference, of businesses that are in the same niche or industry that you're in, and somebody's killing it on social media. Well, there are a lot of reasons why maybe that's happening and why that's not necessarily, probably not transferable to your business. They're very comfortable getting on camera. They already have a bunch of people who who are social media savvy people who have already started to like and follow their page. Maybe in some places, a social media platform is really the community way to communicate. So if you're in a smaller town, you might get better traction in that smaller town by, posting on social media than not, because that's really the channel that people use to find out what's going on in the community. And repurposing content, you can take blogs or your lead magnets like an ebook or a webinar, videos that you create. You can repurpose those and repost even your reviews, and repurpose those to post on social media with fresh new content. There are a lot of tools that give you powers to do repurposing, and it's an underutilized strategy. And really, to me, for a lot of businesses, that's ultimately the power of what social media can bring, is the ability to repurpose that content to help get a fresh new set of eyeballs on it. Just because you post a blog post on your website, or you post a video on YouTube, or even your Facebook page, doesn't mean that people are going to see it. So repurposing content is an intentional remarketing strategy where you're taking that content and you're marketing it again, so that people have a chance to see it. If somebody writes a review for you on Google, great. If somebody does a Google search and they find your Google business profile and they read that review, great. if they don't do that, but they're perusing their news feed on Facebook or X or whatever, and you're reposting that video, that review on that platform, now you're increasing the visibility of that, and that provides social proof. So, there are a lot of different things that I think businesses really need to think about, and level set their expectations of what's possible with social media. The last thing I'll say is I am stunned at how few businesses actually use social media to let people know that there's an offer going on. They also don't do that on their Google business profiles, which you could do through a Google post. People might run ads on Google, pay-per-click ads. They might run ads, on platforms like Groupon, and they're running promotions, and yet they don't do the same promotion and communicate it to the people who are on Facebook. That just constantly amazes me that people don't take advantage of a social offer strategy. At the end of the day, it was true at the beginning of social media when we shifted over to where businesses could have, their pages or profiles specifically for their business. It was true then. It's as true today. The main reason people like or follow or engage with a business is because they're looking for a deal. And, if you're not taking advantage of that strategy to build your followers, keep them engaged, keep them coming back into your business, using social media to continue to grow your list. Look, at the end of the day, Facebook can cancel your account. Twitter can shut down your account. But if you can use that platform to get people to subscribe to your email or text marketing list, which is a strategy, again, that most businesses do not think about and take advantage of. If that platform goes away, now you're screwed. You build up, 400, 500, 1,000 followers, and they're gone. You have nothing to show for that. But if you can get them off the platform, signing up to be on your email or SMS or text marketing list, now you have a way to continue to communicate with them. So if you use texting and email and social media and your website all in a symbiotic way where they're all feeding on top of each other and back and forth between each other in an omnichannel way, that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck on social media. Sadly, when somebody buys social media services from a marketing company or marketing agency or marketing consultant, we're not talking about that level of sophistication. There's a lot to go behind creating effective social media strategies and executing on those. And that most businesses think it's just a cheap, easy thing to do that shouldn't cost a whole lot of money. And therefore, they make judgments that social media doesn't really work for them. And again, there are always going to be cases where you're going to find somebody at a chamber event or at an industry trade show that you go to where you're talking to other businesses in your industry, where somebody is killing it on social media. That's the exception rather than the norm. And those practices usually aren't very translatable because they're usually driven by personality of that particular person in that business. So it's important to have a system in place to make social media really work for your business. That's the case that I would make. When you do that, you're going to get really good, solid results from social media. So with that, I'll wrap it up, and I'd love to hear what else you guys have to say about this.
Yep. Thanks, Ken. That's all good stuff. Some thoughts that I had when you were talking through it. I'm glad you kind of took it back to omnichannel. You kind of took it back to the systems approach. I mean, we're all duct tape marketers. We all believe in starting with strategy first and having a good strategy and then building the marketing system for the business out of that. And yeah, I tell business owners that, of course, it's always dependent on your ideal clients. If your ideal clients are on social media, and the case is probably that they are, it may not be every social media. You got to find the right ones for your target audience, but it's another way to reach them. It's a great touch point. And it's a way to connect. And like you said, it's a way to kind of set yourself apart from other businesses who are all saying the same thing because they can't say what you're saying about you and your business, that authentic voice. So yeah, the building it in as part of the marketing system, the taking advantage of the other opportunities to reach people, and like you said, it's maybe a free platform, but it's not free in terms of the effort and the thought required to do it effectively. But if you do that, it can have a lot of positive returns. So, Ian, Paul, what do you want to add to that?
One thing that popped out right at the end, Ken, when you said, when you go to a conference or you're at a meeting and somebody says, "I'm killing it," my caution to anybody that hears that is ask for like quantification, and specifically quantification related to sales. Oh yeah, it's helped boost your sales. Like, tell me more about that, because if people are sharing their amazing results, I'm sure they'll share a little bit more about it with you. But I'd say, I was going to say 9 times out of 10, my record is totally imperfect. It's 10 out of 10 right now. In that whenever somebody says that, if you do a little bit of digging, this is from my experience alone, nobody actually gets sales, or the sales are not the metric that they're actually tracking against. It's entirely vanity focused, meaning lots of followers, some engagement, whatever. It's, that's not to say there aren't people making money through social media. I want to make that clear. But for most small businesses, and specifically local businesses, I have never met one who their chief strategy is social media marketing.
I have, and they're very, very few and far between. And like I said, it's almost always personality driven. There's just something that people want to see that person, and because they have the attention, they take action, and it's very rare, but it is. And I think it's really the cult of personality of that person, and that's not transferable to other businesses.
Right.
That's the key.
It's just like any other, being a professional athlete, top 1 to 2% of all people that try to be a professional athlete are a professional athlete. The same is true with almost any kind of viral type thing we can think of. Yeah, it's a very small percentage.
I think the key really is just, a lot of businesses, they may choose to use social media as their only channel. And that's a tougher road. That's a much tougher road. When you look at it in an omni-channel amplification strategy, I think is when you're going to get your best results.
I think you made a really good point on that, Ken. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
I was just going to say, I would even go so far as to say it's not just a tougher road, it's almost an impossible road, because the machinations, the algorithms, the way the systems are set up now in social media, they are not to help a business win unless you're paying, and even then your odds are really stacked against you.
Yeah, and I'm not really talking about any paid social media strategies at this point in time, other than doing paid ads only to your followers. I think is an interesting dimension that a lot of people don't take advantage of, because they think when they're advertising on social media, it's like, oh, this is such a great way to reach all these people. There are billions of people on social media. Man, I can get in front of everybody I've always wanted to get in front of. Well, yeah, you can. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're going to get a lot of crap leads.
or retargeting, right, to visitors to your website. You can do that as well, which is low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Ken, I wanted to, before we go on to the next question, and actually Paul still needs to chime in if he wants to, but I want to go back to something that you said about the social media platform could go away. And it's not just the platform owner deciding that they don't like you anymore, banning you, but it's things shift generationally, right? They shift over time. I mean, does anyone remember the predecessor to Facebook, right? It was what?
MySpace?
MySpace, thank you. I mean, everyone that went all in on MySpace is kind of like dead in the water now. They didn't shift and make that shift. So the importance of being in multiple channels and tying them together and using them to drive traffic back and forth, I think is very important. Before I jump into the next question, Paul, you want to add anything, or are we good?
Yeah, the only thing I can mention is that so many small business owners are reluctant to have an offer, and chances are the people on social media, that's what they're looking for. And if you're not having some kind of offer and your competitors are, you just lost.
Yep. Yeah, so that's a good segue into the next question, because it also goes the other way, right? People that use social media for nothing but buy our stuff, buy our stuff, buy our stuff are missing the boat too. So let's transition to the next question with that then. Ian, what are some misconceptions and mistakes that businesses make on social media?
Like, I have to say, Jeff, you asked the right person this question. Maybe everybody on this podcast is the right person, but I really appreciated being able to answer this question because I don't know about you guys, but I spend probably more time answering misconception questions about social media and sometimes about SEO and some of the other platforms. But social media is way up there as far as the number of questions I get and the misperceptions, conceptions that people have about it. So I kind of rank my misconceptions that I wanted to share. So number one, I would say the biggest social media misconception is that it's free and it's easy. Because for consumers, we get to post anything we want for free, and it's relatively easy to do that, and it's relatively easy to actually get engagement with our family, our friends, followers. But it's a pay to play kind of scenario environment now. And it has been for over 7 years. The social channels are not dumb. They know that they have to monetize this system in order to be successful. And some of them are still not making any money, but they're trying to, right? So social media, really for a business, you have to pay to play, meaning you have to do ads. Ken said he's seen some successful ones who do it organically. Again, I haven't seen those from a small business, local business standpoint. I would love to see some good examples of that because I want there to be hope for that. The other aspect of that misconception is that it's easy. It's not. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes money. Like if you're not doing the posting yourself, the creation of the post, the thinking of the post, the strategy, and making sure that they go up and that they're responded to, you have to pay someone to do that, whether it's an internal person or an external person. The second big misconception I would say is that, and Ken broached this, is that social media can be a standalone strategy. Again, I've never seen that work for a local small business. For most small businesses, organic social media marketing will never drive as many leads or have as high return on investment as things like email marketing, search engine optimization, paid ads, content marketing. I mean, it just doesn't. So, and then the third big misconception I would say is that small businesses, that they look at their competitors and they go, "Hey, those guys have more followers, more engagement. They're successful with social media. Why aren't I?" And the interesting thing is that that Ken talked about there being 3 layers in his kind of viewpoint of social media, where you have kind of the table stakes. You got to be there, right? Because people are looking for you. You got to be part of the community. And then brand building and customer engagement. And then the next layer. And I would say, like, you have to be there for table stakes. So you should be posting regularly. But oftentimes when you look at competitive data, so I went through this with a client recently where they shared a screenshot of a competitor's social post, and they were like, "Ian, why do they get so much engagement and we don't?" And so you look at the data, let data be your guide. So I went into the actual post. It wasn't a post, it was an ad. But even still, I went into the post or the ad and I looked at the engagement. Yes, there were 7 likes, right? Yay, like that's okay. And then there were comments, 6 comments, but half of those comments were the company commenting back to the person that commented. So take away that. So there's 3 comments now. 2 of those were people slagging the business. They hated the business, right? So you people look at the data, let the data be your guide. If you're comparing yourself with the competition, actually compare yourself with the competition, drill down a little bit. And then just a few other I would say misconceptions I think that are important to know is every post does not need to be a Mona Lisa, people. Posts are fleeting, right? Like, yes, they live on your page or your profile forever, or as long as the systems allow it. But truthfully, the people that see your posts that are your followers, like, it's there, it's gone. It within hours, if not maybe days, right? So don't over engineer your posts. Think about them, be strategic, but don't over engineer them. And then another misconception is, oh, there's all this buzz about this particular social channel. Jeff, you talked about that. You do not need to be on every social channel. You need to be on the social channels where your clients and your prospects are. That's the most important thing. Don't burn yourself out. Be sustainable. One other misconception I get all the time, and this goes back to Ken's layering effect, is that a lot of businesses think they can outsource their social media and be highly successful. I would say you can outsource your social media to a marketing agency like any of the guys on this podcast, or to another one, a social media expert, and you will get that table stakes layer. You will get and maybe a bit of the next layer up with branding, but you will never get the super high engagement that comes from your team posting things like birthdays, like team events, like dancing between patients, whatever it is, right? Like, those are the posts that get your mom to engage, your friends to engage. And then that booms the social media presence, because now not only is it your followers, it's their followers that start to see it. And that starts to create this ripple effect. So, those are some of my pet peeve misconceptions about social media, but I think they're really, really valuable for business owners to understand. What about you guys? Do you have some other ones?
No, not really. I mean, you pretty much covered it. I think is you have to be on the right channel. A lot of people think that they have to be on every channel out there, and from a business perspective, no, you don't. You need to be on the channels that your clients are using.
Yeah. If I can share one other thing, I think this is really important. This relates to the metrics that you watch, and you guys talked about vanity metrics earlier, and I think that's really important. We had a friend of ours who was a service-based business, and they felt there was a gap in the market at the time where a certain type of commercial had stopped being done by that famous company during Super Bowl ads. And so they took it on themselves just for fun. They invested some money. They created a new Super Bowl replacement ad, basically, but it was just a video. They did it primarily for fun, but also they thought it could be very engaging. So they were sharing the story of how they reached 1,000 views of this ad. And then now I looked at it today and it's actually at 1 million views, which is very cool for a local business. But the thing is after the meeting where this was shared, I asked this friend, well, how many sales or even inquiries have you ever gotten from this ad that you can attribute to this ad? And they said, oh, none. And so I would say from an ROI standpoint, a return on investment, that's horrible. They invested money in this, and although they got some value from the vanity part of it that really puffed them up and made them feel good as a business, truthfully, it didn't help them in any way in their business. So I think that's really important too, that people kind of focus on, I want to go viral, or I want this, or I want more engagement, but not all engagement is good.
Yeah, Ian, you hit on a couple things that I wanted to jump in on. When you talked about outsourcing social media kind of being the entry level and table stakes, absolutely true. And I think the big reason why is because social media is about engagement, and you cannot engage authentically with your target audience if somebody is just outsourcing, the bare minimum. Sure, you want volume, you want ongoing, content going out on social media, and some of that can be generated from other sources, as Ken talked about earlier. But you still got to maintain the engagement, which means responding to comments in a good way, not a bad way. I think it's one of the mistakes business owners make. Somebody, disses them a little bit on social media and they want to jump back and respond and tell them why they're wrong. That's probably a failing strategy.
Yeah.
But it's got to be authentic. It's got to be engaging, and you just can't do that if you're not paying attention to it and looking at it. And then the other thing that's related, I think we hit on earlier too a little bit, is the notion of being too, salesy. Everything can't be an offer. I'm not going to buy, no matter how much I love, XYZ brand pizza. I'm not going to buy pizza every day. So if every day it's like, come buy our pizza, then that's a fail. And the best way I can put this, is imagine you're at a cocktail party, right? You're going to talk to somebody. You're going to get to know them. You're going to hear about what they want to say. You're going to ask them questions. You're going to tell them things. It's not just, hi, I'm Jeff. Do you want to buy my stuff? Right. That's the best analogy. You've got to have a good mix of just what's going on, setting your authority in the business, what's going on, setting you apart, the differentiation, the pull back the curtain. I think Ken used that term. The show the behind the scenes, the personality of the company, and what makes them different. And I think that all wraps up into the, if you're not doing those things for your social media and business, you're kind of missing the boat a little bit.
People forget the social part in the media part, like so often. Like they get stuck in the headspace of this is a marketing thing, but people are on social media to connect, to interact, whether it's with friends, colleagues, brands, right? Like you gotta not forget the people aspect of this, or you're gonna lose for sure.
Right.
Good point.
Ken, Paul?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I think pretty much covered it.
I laid out all everybody's pet peeves there.
Yeah. Ian's got the Wikipedia page for
I do. In fact, I should do a blog post on this.
So we've covered the good. We've covered some of the bad in terms of misconceptions and mistakes. Let's go to the ugly. So Paul, this one's yours. What's the dark side of social media, and how can businesses avoid it?
The dark side, everything.
Dum, dum, dum.
No, I'm joking actually, but no, this is probably a good question for me, because I look at social media as a necessary evil. You have to be there as a business because your clients or your potential clients are going to be there, and that might be the first time they ever notice or interact with your business in any way. But there are some issues with it, and I think the biggest thing is misinformation. It's horrible, and there are people out there that they get almost all of their information from social media, and they think it's accurate, and it's not. But one thing with social media, and this can happen outside of social media, is brand jacking. It just seems to be easier to do on social media, where someone basically co-ops your brand, and that can really cause a lot of problems for a business. It can lead to negative viral content, which is a problem. And there's just, like I said, there's people that go on social media and just post information they know is wrong. It happens all the time. There's a lot of data out there that it happens. But I think some of the biggest things with social media is that it changes so fast, and other than paid advertising, how do you measure your ROI? Because it's difficult to scale. Every platform is different. You have to take some time and effort into figuring out where your ideal clients are, which channels they're using, and goes back to something Ian said, that they think it's easy and they think it's free. And I think a lot of small businesses, they don't realize, and I think Ian kind of touched on this too, that as a individual, so to speak, as a consumer, using social media is vastly different than using social media in your business. And if you're not, engagement and likes, that's great, but is that leading to sales? Something else we talked about. And if it's not, I mean, you can put a lot of time and effort and money into social media and not really get anything tangible out of in the form of revenue or sales. And again, scaling, it's really difficult to do, but I think the pace of change in social media, and something Ken said, they can take that platform away. They can shut down your account and look at the things that are going on, not that Google is social media, but with Google right now and Facebook and Meta in general, they're having some really serious problems. Didn't the EU slap a huge lawsuit against Meta not too long ago?
Yep.
And you don't own it. And we've talked about this before. You own your website, but you don't own your Facebook account. You don't own your Google business profile. You don't own your Instagram account. And they can change the rules on you at any time, and it's completely out of your control. So I think those are some of the biggest things that businesses need to be aware of. Like I said, it's using social media from a business standpoint is completely different than using it as a consumer.
Paul, that's a good point. I think one of the things too that I'm very guilty of this, and I've been trying to challenge myself a little bit. Early on, I'm kind of a purist in terms of use social media, your business profiles or pages or whatnot for your business and keep your personal life kind of separate. But that actually, there's a little bit of crossover that I think you should consider that is healthy and beneficial. It's okay. Don't be salesy, but it's okay to let people know what you do for a living or success stories that you've had from your business, to share that with friends on Facebook, for example. If you're not doing that, you're missing a bigger opportunity, I think. Don't overwhelm people with it. That shouldn't be every post that you're doing on on the personal side, but periodically saying, hey, you know what, we have a blast doing this service for our clients. I just wanted to share that this is something I love to do personally. And if you know anybody, who'd be interested, have them DM me, and that's fine. Doing that occasionally, I think, is good. There are certain businesses where the business really is the person, right? I mean, realtors, in some cases, attorneys, or folks like that. They need to be respectful of their personal profiles and not bombard people with, hey, I've just got this new listing. Hey, I've just got this new listing. Hey, I've just got this new listing. People don't care about that. I mean, that'll drive people away faster than you can blink an eye. But if you mix it in with other things that you're doing, like, here's what, I just contributed to this build in, Habitat for Humanity, where you're sharing something where you're giving something back to the community or helping the community. If you mix it up, you're okay. But for a long time, I had this hardline position. It's like you need to. It either needs to be business and on the business accounts, or it needs to be personal. I think there's a little opportunity for crossover, but you got to be really careful with it. Otherwise, you're getting ugly.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Really think when you post if it's starting to stray off topic from your business, especially if it is going into anything controversial. Now, if you're doing, firearms training, of course you're going to talk about Second Amendment rights and things. But if you're a pizza shop, should you really be putting strong opinions out about things that are not related to your business? It's maybe. I mean, if you want to be a pizza shop for a very narrow segment, maybe.
If it's
But
intentional,
typically.
Yeah,
You want
if
to
it's
alienate people, right?
based on who you think your ideal customers are, yeah, then maybe that's okay. But usually there's not that thought that's put behind it. Sadly.
Right. Yeah, let's be a little careful about that. And I think some of the ugly side is, there are a lot of bad actors out there, a lot of trolls, people that are gonna just try and get you riled up, try and make you look bad. Paul hit on a bunch of the things. Misinformation is huge. So take a critical view, when you're looking at it, when you're doing competitor analysis, kind of think about, Does that make sense? And then don't necessarily jump on their social media and flame them for it, but just think about what you want to say and how you want to say it and how it'll be perceived. This might be a good place to slip in right before we started the topic I wanted to talk about before we get to the bonus question. Does anyone else, before I do that, does anyone else want to jump in on the ugly or dark side? All right, so then maybe it's the dark side or ugly. I don't know. What's everyone's take on social media influencers, the role of social media influencers? This came up in a networking group that I was in yesterday afternoon. We had a really good conversation around it, so I thought it would be a good one to slip in here someplace.
It depends on what they're influencing. I mean, I'm not a social media person. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a big social media person. So as far as influencers, I can't really speak to it because I don't really follow anyone on social media. I just don't.
I'm shocked, Paul.
I know you are.
Me too.
Yeah, I actually liked how Paul started that with it saying it depends what they influence. I think influencers can be a double-edged sword. I think, the good thing about influencers is they give you access, and that's what you're paying them for, or providing some sort of break or bonus or whatever you're doing. Usually there's pay involved, but you're doing it because they are a conduit to people you're trying to connect with. I would just say, most influencers I've seen out there, and there is exceptions to this, but most influencers are meaning they're not local. And so I haven't seen a lot of local influencers, but I'm sure there must be a ton out there because they have to start somewhere, right? But I would just say, be very careful and look. I was talking about data-driven decisions earlier about social media. I think you need to really understand the data. So if you're considering an influencer, really dig into the data. And if they give you general data, like I have this many followers, ask them for geographic breakdown, right? Give me a geographical breakdown of these. If we're a local business and you have followers all around the world, how does that help me? Why should I pay you for connections to those people? So is there still value in having an influencer share your posts? Probably. But are you overspending? Yeah. And then the other side of it is, influencers have this tendency to be I don't know what the right term is. There is, you guys probably know the term better than me, but basically, like, influencers can quickly become non-influencers pretty quick if they do something stupid, right? We hear about it on the news all the time. So again, be careful who you tie your business and your brand to.
Yeah.
But it can be a good strategy if you find the right people.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens serendipitously for a business. I just think about, what happened with Taylor Swift and, a clothing store in Kansas City. She bought a jersey, for her, to wear her boyfriend's number or whatnot. And, that business just blew up, because everybody's like, oh my God, where'd you get that? That's so cool. And so sometimes that's just going to naturally happen. That's not influencer though. Taylor Swift is absolutely an influencer, but she wasn't being paid for that, at least as far as we know. It was just something that she decided to share, and it happened organically, and that's great. One of the things that we talk about all the time as part of a core marketing strategy, which I think is kind of an alternative to an influencer strategy, and that's to leverage your strategic partnerships.
Yes.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with you reaching out. If you're a plumber and you work with an electrician and you work with home builders and real estate agents, you know what? Have a formal or informal agreement to periodically share each other's content. That's great. It's getting it in front of a new audience. We would encourage you to do that, in a non-social media way, by passing referrals and whatnot. Well, this is kind of the social media equivalent of kind of giving a little bit of a light referral, because if they share your content, that's actually kind of a thumbs up to say, hey, this is a great business, somebody you ought to consider doing business with, even though you may not, it's not a direct referral to a specific individual, it is to their followers. And so I think that's typically a better strategy for small businesses, unless you're really on the e-commerce side of things. And then I think influencers is certainly something that you should research and consider doing, and stepping into it, very, with eyes wide open about what it can and might mean for your business. But that's what I would recommend. I mean, there are people who are just natural influencers because they just tend to share content, but they're not paid to do so. And so, to me, when we talk about influencers, there's usually that paid intention and that paid requirement to be able to do it. There are plenty of people who will serve as influencers, but you don't have to pay them. Just work out some strategic partnerships with the right people.
Hey, Ken,
Yeah,
I just want to echo that, because I see this done really effectively, and it's not done effectively by all business referral networks, but the BNI group I'm a part of, and maybe it's because we talk about it a lot, but and encourage each other to watch for these types of posts, because you can then refer people. I see those kind of micro influencer type opportunities where it's strategic partners that are trying to help each other grow their businesses. When you see a post, when somebody's looking for a website, say Ian's your guy, and send them a link to my website or whatever. And those kind of things are a type of influence that I think are tremendously helpful, especially on a local side.
Yeah, there are all kinds of groups that are out there on Facebook, especially, where there are one locally here is I Know a Guy, and people will jump in there and share who they think is a great resource. But it's a community. It's not a paid, hey, I'm sharing this person, I expect to get paid this amount of money or do this. It's helping build a community and share valuable information within your community. So,
The other thing is, define an influencer. Because when I said I don't follow people on social media, Mike Cooch, I would consider him an influencer in the sense that he has great content and he knows what he's talking about. I don't follow him in the traditional sense, but I do consume his content, so to speak. I'm subscribed to his YouTube channel. So he's an influencer, but as far as I know, he doesn't, maybe I'm wrong, but he doesn't, like we were talking about, okay, here, I'll share your post with my followers and I want to get paid for it. I don't think he does that.
I'm sure he probably operates on affiliate links, but which is a form of payment, but not paid specifically in an influencer plan potentially. So, yeah, I mean, and we haven't really talked about YouTube. I do think that there's a social element, obviously, to YouTube. It's not a pure social network per se, but it's something that we should come back and.
Uh-oh, I think we might have lost Ken.
He was going to say we should come back and explore YouTube on another podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that would be a good topic. My take on influencers is, and Ken made the point, is the micro influencers or the local level. Yeah. I think there's all levels. And when you get to the very top levels, it's maybe not a great thing, but finding those micro influencers, the ones who can help your business locally, and it's really just another form of strategic partnering or networking, can be really good. And you can almost make the distinction, to your point, Paul, what's the definition of an influencer? There's a difference between authority or authoritative voice and an influencer. I tend to think of influencer, maybe it's some head trash, but with a little more of a negative connotation now. It is the pay to play. And I did a consult with a very small organic skincare product line company that was selling online, doing about 6 figures. And they happened to get a mention in an influencer's blog, and their business just blew up. It doubled that year. and that was several years ago. And now we're looking at more ways to get influencers to mention them. And all of a sudden, it's well, yeah, if you want to pay enough, they will. It's become a very transactional thing. And I think when you're at that level, the influencers that are expecting money in return for influence as opposed to just helping them provide content, they're going to make their money off their advertising or whatever other ways, maybe the break point. I don't know. It's just something to be aware of and watch out for. We've got about 5 minutes left. We want to jump to the bonus question.
Sure.
And I'll just open this up for a free for all. The bonus question is: what are some key strategies for businesses wanting to get into or expand their social media use?
Go ahead.
I'll start. I mean, I think it's really important to have, like I mentioned in my answer, I really look at a 3-tier strategy for social media. Basic blocking and tackling. Some of that can be outsourced. You can get some really great content. You can use it to drive traffic back to your website, for blog posts, content repurposing, things like that. Level 2, you got to be doing the behind the scenes, the personality of the business, the individuals who make up the business, the reason the business got started, what you care about, what your passion is, how you leverage the community. And then the third thing is just, it's really, and it can be a little awkward, but it's really that growth strategy. How do I get more people to like or follow my business? And specific types of posts that are designed to do that, to get it higher levels of engagement, asking questions or polls or sharing quotes, or even doing boosted posts occasionally to get to increase eyeballs, and then inviting those people who like the post to like your page or follow your business. That's kind of a three-tiered strategy before you even get into paid advertising. And I think, the engine that drives all of it is, in my mind, it's repurposing content. That's the critical ingredient that needs to be there. Is if you don't have content coming from other sources to repurpose and leverage and build the power from social media, I think most businesses are going to struggle. And that's not something, the business can't just say, here, go do my social media and be hands off and expect that they're going to get fantastic results. Unless you're like an e-commerce business or something like that, where the business is kind of already sort of running on autopilot anyway, just based on the fact that people can go and buy stuff online. Maybe that's a little bit different animal. That's not typically the customers we work with. We work with people who are either brick and mortar or service area businesses. And it's tough to just hand it off and be completely hands off. Jeff, I think you even mentioned, how can an outsourced company truly provide that authentic engagement when people are, giving you, they're sharing information. You can do some of that, but that's going to cost you a lot more money to have somebody that deeply invested in your business to be able to properly provide those responses.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about that is I think there's an evolution or a journey that a lot of businesses go on. And I think actually outsourcing, because this is why we include it in most of our programs that we do for clients, is because they're not doing it now. They're not consistently even doing the base amount of social media marketing, content marketing on social media that they should be doing. And so we included it as part of almost all of our programs, because we see it as a step in the journey to being where you need to be on social. And if we continue to equip, guide, and train them in more of the authentic type posting and engagement, that we can get them where they need to be. But sometimes that road is years. So I would never suggest don't outsource it if you're not doing it now, or you're doing it inconsistently, because we see this all the time when we do social media audits. Especially during COVID, there was this sudden boom of social media from every business in the world because they had tons of time and they were stuck at home, right? And then all of a sudden they came back to work and their social media posting entirely dropped off. But we see that all the time where, you know, even before COVID, we would do audits. We would see businesses do these bursts of social media because they suddenly go, I need to be on social media. So they put some energy, time, and effort into it and money. And then they're like, I'm not getting the results. So they stop doing it. Right. It's a sustainable activity that they need to engage in or pay someone to engage in, at least to get that blocking and tackling that you talked about, Ken.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, you know, most people they may very well check you out on social media before they ever pick up the phone and call or fill out that form on your website. They want to see what the business is doing. If they see no posts from the business for the last 6 months to a year, they may assume that the business is no longer around, or they don't care. They don't want to share their personality. And, you know, we live in a world where I think more and more people are wanting to do business with people that they kind of get and they kind of like, you know, and social media is such a critical element to that. It's the equivalent of if you have no Google reviews, you know, you're creating a vacuum where people are going to make their own assumptions about your business, and that chances are it's not going to be the assumption that you would want to have them make about your business, because it's usually almost always going to be negative. Nobody cares enough to go write a review, you know, about this business. Is just as bad as having bad reviews, I think, in a lot of ways. And at the same time, if a business is doing zero posting on social media, it just speaks volumes about your business.
And not just as a consumer of that service or product, but also if you're looking for work, or you're a business trying to hire the best people you can possibly find. And we saw this in the trades since COVID, right? Like, social media can be a very important aspect of presenting your brand, who you are, why they should work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you forget about that, it's your loss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as I wrote down some notes on the strategies, I wrote down have a strategy. So, but yeah, be authentic. We talked about. I think some other things are pay attention to the quality, right? If you're doing videos, if you're doing images, you know, make sure they represent you well. They're representing your brand. You don't want videos that are poorly lit and you can't hear the audio. You don't want images that are fuzzy. And then pay attention to the trends. Look at the analytics. Look at the insights, and just commit to it. You know, you don't have to do it full time, but you got to do it and make it part of the overall picture. Paul, you wanted to jump in?
The only thing I'd say is, you know, and you just mentioned is, you know, staying up to date on social media trends. You could make a career out of that. I mean, because it just changes so fast. I mean, every day there's another platform out there. I mean, not quite every day, but, you know, it just takes a lot of effort. And like everyone said, you have to commit to it, and you can outsource it to a certain point. But yeah, it's just, I guess you have to figure out a way that social media isn't the time suck that it just naturally turns into, because it does.
I think it's do it right and then use it as a key differentiator and competitive advantage.
At the end of the day, social media has become an echo chamber, you know, and if you're not doing things intentionally to break out of that echo chamber and get seen by a broader group of people, that echo chamber can be very powerful for you. Absolutely, no doubt. But I think a lot of people think it's the free and cheap and easy way to reach everybody on the planet without having to pay Google ads or having to pay for a search engine optimization strategy so that people can find their website. That's just a dead wrong assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And businesses that think that way, you know, good luck, because you're going to need it.
So unless anyone wants to add anything else, I think this is a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, I think so.
Good topic.
Okay, then.
Guys.
Well, I'd like to say thanks to each of our marketing experts here for sharing their insights. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. We hope you found the topic valuable. If so, please share the link to it with your friends and colleagues that could benefit from it. Let us help grow our podcast. And also be sure to follow us or subscribe to the podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. Until next week, keep calm and market on.